Right now, I'm recording a speech instead of giving it in the classroom. Not a preference by any means, but an obligation. Due to the coronavirus and stay-at-home orders, online classes are just one of the many things that people have to deal with that are not optimal whatsoever. Most decisions made by the government, essential businesses, and universities undermine the effects of COVID-19 on people and even their families. Honestly, it's very important that we pay close attention to how our society handles aspects of this issue. In these times, I think it's very important as people to recognize how our society at large is dealing with such issues regarding the coronavirus. And as such, I've outlined 3 main points that I'll be talking about. First, I want to talk about how the essential workers and businesses are operating in a way that does not protect the essential workers. Second, I want to talk about how the online schooling system that's been in place for a while now is very inconvenient to a multitude of students in the various situations. Third, I want to speak on how the stimulus check bill that's been recently passed, I want to speak on how that really does leave out a huge portion of the population, which in itself is just an unjust act. In order to completely understand how our society has been making very wrong decisions at this time, we must first understand how the essential workers have been put at very high risk to endure. Essential workers have not been adequately protected, and businesses should make their work optional. As of late, a recent article by ABC 15 states, grocery store chains tell ABC 15 that they are taking CDC precautions. However, stores cannot enforce those rules on the public. I think this is very, very vital. The public is the main resource for infection. Being that these grocery store workers are just working, the public, meaning the customers, can infect mostly everything in the store without even knowing it. They're not obliged to comply with the working protocols of the essential workers. So the fact that these essential workers are even put to work in the condition that the customers can really just do whatever they want is very unjust and should be considered when allowing them to work. Now that we briefly talked about essential working conditions, let's look at the issues concerning online school. Being obligated to take online classes puts many at unfortunate circumstances. Colleges, universities, and high schools don't know what's happening to the students at home, especially in the midst of the coronavirus. Some students can't even afford to have internet. Many students have problems using Zoom. There's just a number of things that people can't predict concerning online schooling with students. A journal recently published in 2020 titled "The Psychological Impacts of COVID-19 on College Students in China" found that 24.9% of college students in China experienced anxiety due to reasons relating to the effect of their future employment and future studies. Now, this can happen in a multitude of ways. Students could fail certain classes, students can withdraw from classes, students can drop classes. Those things affect what they'll be doing in the future and even how they'll be employed down the line. Personally, in my case, I found myself contemplating whether I should drop many classes from time to time. If I were to do that, then my future studies would be greatly impacted and even my employment. Not only would I have to retake the class in the future, but by withdrawing from a class, I would have to pay that same amount of money for the class to take over again. Overall, the idea of having an online school at this time, while it may be necessary, it proves itself to be unfair in many, many ways. There are simply way too much students that just can't do the things that are expected of them at home, given the circumstances of internet and even having a computer. Now, many professors will accommodate for this, but there's no telling what these students are able to endure. I'm not suggesting that online school be tarnished for good, but what I'm saying is that online school should be greatly modified on an individual basis if it's to continue, in order to ensure that every student is being fairly assessed in that way. In addition to the factors of essential working conditions and online schooling conditions, the stimulus check is also something that shows how our society has made inconsiderate decisions at this time. The stimulus check leaves out a considerable portion of the population based on this criteria. In terms of the criteria of the stimulus check, if you're a working citizen of the United States and you filed your taxes, then you should be entitled to $1,200 in the stimulus check, in addition to $500 extra per dependent. However, if you're an adult and someone has claimed you as a dependent on their taxes, but you're working, then you won't get a stimulus payment at all. That might sound like a rare case, but for many people, this is the reality. Imagine all of the college students who work all year and file their taxes, but their parents still have them as dependents. These individuals won't even be getting the $500 boost, let alone the whole $1,200. Along with this group of people, there's also the very large population of individuals who have not filed for taxes in 2 or more years. Now, if you haven't filed for taxes in 2 or more years, then you're completely ineligible for the stimulus check. In conjunction, those two populations make up millions of Americans, and millions of Americans being left out of money that they really should be getting is just very unjust in my opinion. Without this stimulus check for those people, how will they go about buying food? How will they go about paying their bills or even their rent? The government simply just has to do more for these individuals, if not give them the stimulus check. Overall, this COVID-19 pandemic is something that we've never seen before. With that being the case, it's easy to see how society, our government, and even universities, as well as businesses, can make very wrong decisions because they never dealt with it in the way that we are right now. With that being said, mostly everybody is going through these unintentionally impractical circumstances. With that being the case, however, I personally do not believe that this can go on for any longer, especially as we transition into the summertime.